Welcome to the Greater Than Business podcast, where it's all about creating an amazingly successful business without sacrificing your quality of life, because life should be greater than business. And now, here is your host, Courtney Bedore.
This is episode 12 of the Greater Than Business podcast, and today we are going to be talking all about Evergreen webinars and how you can use an Evergreen webinar to scale your business. So if you don't already know what an Evergreen webinar is, I'm just going to quickly explain it. Basically, what an Evergreen webinar is an automated webinar that you don't have to be present for. So it's pre-recorded. It will most likely, if you do it right, it'll appear like you're live, but you're not. And it will become a machine in your business that will not only nurture your subscribers and your leads and your potential clients, but it's also going to basically allow you to trickle in sales through this Evergreen webinar. So it's set up like it is live, but you don't actually, well, for authenticity purposes, I don't actually encourage people to ever say it's live, but you just give the illusion that it's live. So usually what I recommend is that you have the ability to have a team member or a staff member that can monitor an inbox that people will submit their questions to, and so that it feels like it's live, so they can type in and answer or basically ask any questions that they want, and then you email them back and answer them. Or a staff member will email them back and answer them. So they still feel like they're getting the assistance that they would on a live webinar, except you don't actually need to be there. And you can convert people essentially into buying your program or whatever it is that you're selling on your webinar, but you don't actually have to be there to do it. So it's pre-recorded, and it's obviously a webinar that you have used in the past. At least once you've used it live, so you know it actually will convert. And then you basically will set it up in a way that it has to be a gated access. So what I mean by gated access is that they have to subscribe to your email list in order for them to be able to watch the webinar. I recommend setting yourself up on a webinar platform that allows you to have a chat box. Specifically, I would recommend Webinar Jam and using Everwebinar with Webinar Jam. Now, the reason why I use Everwebinar for my Evergreen webinars is because it allows you to have a running chat box that is actually the chat that would have happened live at the time when you recorded your webinar. So the first time you ran it live, or one of the times that you ran it live, you're going to actually have people watching it and chatting in. And then when you do that on Webinar Jam. Now, what you do with that recording on Webinar Jam is you can then import it into Everwebinar, and from there, you can basically bring over that chat conversation, load it up, and at the time during your live, when that question was asked, it'll appear in the recorded chat roll. So it ends up working out perfectly, and then you can actually go in and edit some of the questions and like the chat roll. You can get rid of some questions, or you can add in questions that would steer the conversation for the people that are on your Evergreen version of that webinar. So think of the example as, like, let's say someone in your chat box on your live was asking really questions that just don't make sense. Then you could just go in and delete them, or you could add in questions that do make sense. So things that you wished people had have asked you during the live so that you could have explained it better. Or basically there's kind of anything. And then what you could do is actually have mimic a team member answering those questions while you are hosting the webinar. So you can always let people know at the beginning of your live that you're going to have a team member in the chat box that's going to be answering questions for the ones that you couldn't get to live, and let them know that they will receive an email if they didn't get their question answered live, and because you go through and you answer all the questions that you just didn't have time for. So the reason why I tell people to do that is because then after the fact, you can have somebody on a daily basis that goes through that email inbox that will get all of the new questions, and they can either add those new questions into the simulated chat role, or they can respond back to them and make sure that these people that are now in your selling sequence for the after the webinar purchase sequence, then you would be able to nurture them a little bit more and answer their questions and make sure that they're having a really good customer experience with your Evergreen webinar. And then that is going to help boost your sales tremendously. So that is why I recommend using a service like that will allow you to simulate a live webinar, but you don't actually have to do live webinars over and over and over again, because that's just going to get exhausting. So the reason that I stress and always tell people to set up Evergreen webinars in their business is because it is the best way to scale. So if you can scale your Evergreen webinar to a point where it is bringing in sales and generating new leads basically on autopilot, then you've created the dream business. So I have several clients that will use different webinars as well. So you can have one webinar that will touch on a specific topic, and then another Evergreen webinar that will touch on a different specific topic. But they can all be driving your customers towards whatever product it is on the other end. So it could be the same product, it could be different products, but basically if you can create these little mini on-demand trainings, which then are basically your Evergreen webinars, that then sell people into other programs, then you can scale your business rapidly. Now, with that being said, I do want to also say that webinars are not a quick fix solution. At the beginning, they take time and dedication, and there's a lot of little steps that you need to do in order for you to be able to actually get a successful Evergreen webinar that you can scale. But there's also a way of creating just a basic webinar that doesn't need to be the bread and butter to your business. So you can continue doing whatever it is you do in your business on the day-to-day, and you don't have to stress about sales, basically. You can just have this other thing running in the background that will just produce some sales for your business. So let's say you're a business coach. Obviously, with business coaching, your primary source of income is going to be coaching. So that is something that you can't necessarily scale if people want to work one-on-one with you. So it's not like you can duplicate yourself. So if people want to work with you, then you only have a limited amount of time. But if you were to create another form of income that could come into your business, which would be through an Evergreen webinar and selling a mini course on how to, do something related to your coaching business, then you could create another income stream that would take the stress off of you needing to be on all the time with your coaching. So obviously the bread and butter of your business is going to be coaching. So let's say you sell a $10,000 coaching package. With that $10,000 coaching package, you are obviously going to be limited in your monthly income. So let's say you can only take on 5 clients and they pay you, say, $2,000 a month. for their, I don't know, however many week program that equals $10,000. Let's say that they are paying you $2,000 a month and you have 5 clients. Right there, there's your max set point. You can't possibly take on any more than 5 clients, because then the quality of your work, your schedule, everything is going to go completely out the window. And if you have not yet listened to the episode on boundaries, I want you to go listen to that episode if you were at all toying with the idea of, oh, I'll just work more and I'll take more clients. No, stop, hard stop right there. I don't want you to do that. So go back, listen to the episode on boundaries, then come back, start up this episode again, because then you're going to have a fresh mind frame of, oh yeah, I don't want to just keep taking on clients and saying yes, yes, yes to everything in order to get money, which absolutely does not necessarily help in the overwhelm state that you are going to put yourself in. Anyways, totally got sidetracked there. But what I want you to really, really remember is that if you start to want more money and want to grow your business in a different way, and you are in an industry like coaching, you can't just take on more clients, because that's not going to be what's in alignment with why you started your business and why you want to run the business the way that you do. So the best solution is creating an evergreen webinar and selling something else that will also boost your revenue and your income and hopefully your profit. So setting up an evergreen webinar from the beginning is super time consuming. So you will want to give yourself a decent amount of a runway to get this started. I have actually had clients of mine bring on a project manager just to get this part of their business going, because there are a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of things that you need to consider. It's not just as simple as recording a webinar, putting it on a lead page, and then driving people to that. It can be, but your conversions aren't going to be as great as if you actually plan this out correctly and set it up. So if you're not in the place of your business where you can just hire someone to help out, I've created a checklist that basically runs you through everything that you need to know when starting up an evergreen webinar. And it covers all of the tech things that you'll need to have in place in order to make your evergreen webinar successful and bring in another income stream into your business. So before I wrap this episode up, I do want to give you some tips on how you can build out your evergreen webinar to make sure that it is successful. So the first thing is, always make sure that the webinar that you are going to be presenting is something that people want to learn, because this is going to be another stream of income coming in your business. So you definitely want to make sure that it's something that people actually want, and it's sending them to a product that makes sense for them. So whatever the product is that you're going to be selling, it has to be something that is also evergreen. So it can't be something where it's a single intake and it only happens in February and then it doesn't happen again until the following February. That's not going to work on an evergreen webinar, because then you're going to be having an evergreen webinar only run certain months out of the year, and it'll just kind of get logistically a nightmare. So what you want to do is create something that sells to a course that is evergreen as well. So something you've already created, something that's already packaged. And it can be an 8-week course. It doesn't have to be something where they're just dumped into it right away, but it does need to be something that you have created the automations on the back end to release it in an evergreen way. So whether that be every Monday, they get a new module, or they get all the modules at once and they work through it in like a self-study format. You need to make sure that whatever you're selling is equally as evergreen so that you have less hiccups as you roll this out to your audience. The other thing is that if you are planning on scaling this to be the bread and butter of your income at some point, You need to really nail down your numbers. Make sure you know how many people need to be put into this funnel, or basically into this Evergreen webinar each month, in order for you to turn out the dollar amount that you're looking for in sales. So you need to make sure that, let's say your conversion rate is like 5% on an Evergreen webinar, which is high for conversion rates, but it is attainable. I have seen it done on a consistent basis in the past. But let's say that 5% is your conversion rate. So then you need to know your numbers and work your way backwards and see how many people you want to bring into your funnel in order to make that amount of money. So if you want to make $10,000 a month, then you need to work backwards from that and figure out, okay, if I need $10,000, then I'm going to have 5,000 people come through my webinar. And then you need to make sure that you can allot that amount of ad spend into either Facebook ads or something else that will bring in those leads for you fast. Now, there is a way that you can do this organically, which I always say, don't just rely on Facebook ads, always be promoting organically as well. So in order for that to happen, you just need to be consistent with posting on social media, reminding people that you have your on-demand training available, have it on your website. Like, basically just don't hide it from people. Have it everywhere that you can think of, but let them know that it is an on-demand training. And I never use the word live in any of my promotions for an Evergreen webinar because it's not live. And basically, I try to be as authentic as possible with my messaging for an Evergreen webinar. I find that that is the best way to actually get conversions because you're being honest. And if you say it's a live webinar and they look at it and go, okay, well, it was live at 2 p.m., it's live at 3 p.m., it's live at 4 p.m., and I just saw you actually on Facebook Live. So how were you running a webinar and being on a Facebook Live when I saw you? So it starts getting a little icky. And we don't want it to be icky. So just never use the word live, ever, 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 ever. And make sure that when you are actually recording your Evergreen webinar and you are recording it live, because if you follow the checklist that I'm going to link to in the show notes, you have to do it live once, at least once before. And in that live webinar, do not mention that it's live, because you want to use that recording as your Evergreen webinar. So just always be mindful of that and make sure that you are keeping things authentic. And that will help to boost your conversions and allow you to have that extra income stream coming in so that you can actually scale your business and take it to the next level. So that is pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in this episode. I just wanted to let you know that there is the Evergreen webinar checklist available to download for free if you go to the show notes. The show notes are going to be found at greaterthanbusiness.com/012. And there you can find links to everything that I mentioned in this episode, as well as I'm going to link a couple more resources on Evergreen webinars. I do have a couple posts about the 5 steps to building out an Evergreen webinar and a way to use a posting system called Meet Edgar in order to simulate a live launch of an Evergreen webinar. So it's a really neat little trick that I use, and I want you guys to go away with that resource as well. So I will link all of those in the show notes. And as always, if you have any questions at all, or you want to chat it out through email, please, please, please shoot me an email. My address is flow@flowautomationinc.com, and it is me that answers all of the emails, and I love hearing from you guys. So by all means, if you have any questions and you want to geek out on Evergreen webinars, I am your girl, and I look forward to hearing from you. So I want to let you know what's coming up on the next podcast as well. episode 13, we are going to be talking about overcoming your biggest fears in your business. So that episode will be ready for you next week, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of the week, and I will talk to you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the Greater Than Business podcast at www.greaterthanbusiness.com.